2 earlier this morning or 2 this night, depending on where you are on the globe. And this one is going to be awesome. It is Colin McRae Rally 2.0 by thebpg13. And yeah, just we're going to go straight into it. All right, and you are live. Good luck.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, so welcome everyone to Colin McRae Rally 2. This game was released in 2000. It came out on the PC and the PS1. This is the PC release because it's running in lovely 1080p. But yeah, this is, like I said, rally racing game. It's a sequel to the original Colin McRae Rally game released back in 1998. There was actually a big war as to which car was the one that I used. I believe, was it the Mitsubishi Lancer that won?
Let me do one last check. Mitsubishi Lancer won by 5 cents.
Oh, so because you guys wanted the Mitsubishi Lancer, that's the one we're going to use. Now there is 6 cars, and I'll explain that in the run. But you guys voted for it, so this is what you're going to get. So I'll give you a countdown from 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. So, to kind of explain a bit more about the cars, games, and everything like that. Well, the game mode and everything that we're doing. So, this is the championship mode in this game, and the championship consists of 8 rounds, starting in Finland, going through Greece, France, Sweden, Australia, Kenya, Italy, and finally finishing in the UK. Now, a couple of things to note. We're going to be doing a lot of corner cutting and a few out of bounds things in this game, so expect a couple of corner cuts here and a few corner cuts there. But yeah, like I said, the game came out in 2000, and in the last probably, I'd say 2 years, this game has been broken and exploited beyond recognition. And you'll see most of that in action today, providing everything goes well, of course. So to kind of explain a few things, so there's 2 different categories for championship. There's actually 2 sub-variables, should I say. There's 3 different championship difficulties, which are the Novice, the Intermediate, and the Expert. Now we're doing the Novice Championship because it's the fastest. The Intermediate follows 8 rounds again, except you'll have more stages, and the Expert is a lot more stages. I say that, a few more stages than the Intermediate. And obviously the AI gets harder as you go. So Intermediate is a bit more tougher than the Novice, and Expert is the toughest of the tough. But even the Expert AI isn't really a challenge when you do some of these corner cuts, which you'll see in today's run. Now, there's a sub-variable for these categories for the championship. We'll get onto the other game modes afterwards, but for now, we'll start with the championship since that's the run we're doing for you guys today. So there's the standard cars and there's bonus cars. Now, this run is going to be done with the standard cars variable. So the difference between standard and bonus cars, there's 6 cars originally that you can choose from in this game. When you first boot up, when you first start a brand new game and you've never played it before, there's 6 cars that show, which are the Super Impreza, the Toyota Corolla, the Mitsubishi Lancer, which is the car that you guys picked, the Ford Focus, the Seat Cordoba, and the Peugeot 206. Now, it must be worth noting that when they did the original Colin McRae Rally in 1998, and they first released it, all the cars were based off the 1997 season. However, in this game, half of the cars weren't based off the season they were from. So, for example, the Super Impreza was based off the 1999 season, I believe it was. Sorry, 98 season, instead of the 99 season. The Toyota Corolla was based off the 97 season. The Mitsubishi Lancer was based off the 99 season. The Peugeot 206, the Seat Cordoba were both based off the 1999 season. And the Ford Focus was based off the 2000 season. So you've got a mix of years for cars. The whole reason why I mention this is because the liveries on the cars are actually specific to certain years. So most of the cars in rallying back in the 90s kind of used similar liveries year in, year out, with a few differences being maybe the color might have changed as a whole, or maybe some sponsors came and went between the years. So that's usually how you can tell the difference between what year the cars were from. Anyway, so as I said, 6 standard cars. Now, if I was to do this with a car of my choice out the standard cars, I would pick the Seat Cordoba, and that is the car that all the runners go to primarily. And the main reason for that is if you look in the manual for Colin McRae Rally 2, you'll actually find, you'll find a few like minor statistics for all of the cars. And what they don't tell you is that somebody's actually looked into this before. I think it was off an IGN website, maybe. Can't remember where I saw it exactly, but basically they've done like a rundown of all the cars. And it turns out that most of the cars are around 300 horsepower, with a few exceptions. So, for example, the Toyota Corolla is 295 horsepower. The Ford Focus is 298. The Evo is 299. Peugeot 206 and Subaru Impreza are 300 horsepower. And the Seat Cordoba is 315, I believe it is. So it has that extra 15 horsepower, meaning it's the fastest of the lot. And that shows quite clearly. So on a stage like this, even on a short stage like this, the speed shows. So I could probably do like a 52-second time for that stage, but with the Seat Cordoba, it's like a 51. It's about 2 seconds a stage faster, which is pretty nuts. Now, in terms of actual variety, in terms of the handling, most of the cars handle the same. However, there is a few things to note, which is that the Toyota Corolla is a lightweight car, as is the Ford Focus, so you'll find that it understeers quite a bit through corners. The Mitsubishi Lancer, on the other hand, is actually the heaviest of the bunch, meaning the weight isn't as easy to control when you're trying to throw its weight around corners, things like that. Now, a couple of things to note. The bonus cars, you may remember I just mentioned those very, very briefly, as that's the other variable for these categories. So the bonus cars are any car that you unlock. These include a few classic cars, such as the Lancia Stratos, the Lancia Delta Integrale, the Ford Racing Puma, the 99 Racing Ford Focus, the 1999 Ford Focus, the 1980s Ford Sierra Cosworth, 1960s Mini Cooper. There's a 1980s MG Metro 6R4 in here, and a couple other cars too. And you unlock these through completing the rallies, primarily winning them, and winning the championship at the end as well. Now, in terms of what they actually do, as in the championships themselves, obviously they provide quite a bit of a challenge. Each and every one has its own distinct challenge. Now, every stage is unique. However, there is something that's worth noting. Now, unlike the first Colin McRae Rally game, the second one has reused stages. So you'll probably end up noticing this. If you got good eyes and notice the track layouts, you may notice that this is actually the first stage we've done in Finland, but it's reversed. There's a fair few stages in this game that are like that. Now, the more harder the championship you do, the more stages that there are, and obviously the more duplicates that you'll get. Now, we've already done Finland. Finland's quite a fast rally. Now we're on to Greece. Very slippery, gravelly Greece. It should be worth noting something. So in Greece, there's what we call Super Special Stage. And it's not just in Greece, there's a few other rallies that contain these Super Special Stages. Now, for those that don't know anything about rallying or are unaware about what a stage is basically a point A to point B sprint. Think of it as a sprint race from a typical Need for Speed game, except it's set on snow, gravel, ice, tarmac, mud, or anything in between that. And they range from a few kilometers to several. So as in, like, some stages might be only like 2.5 kilometers, some might be 7 kilometers. You don't know. It all depends. However, super special stages have a bit of a unique twist to them because they're head-to-head stages. So that's basically you versus an AI. There's going to be 2 cars on the track at all times, well, on the stage at all times. And the whole point is that you need to beat your opponent. Now, originally when we used to do this run, what we actually used to do is we used to do them stages normally. However, thanks to various tricks found by various members of the community, such as Franz, Zorkov, Lucky, and recently Fairrod, these stages are now pretty much not extinct, but pointless. And you'll see why when we get to them. But using literally just a basic bit of driving, and anyone can do this, by the way, it's not magic and it's not difficult to pull off. It doesn't require setting anything up in particular. The main primary thing about this run is to obviously be quick, otherwise you're gonna lose out big time. As a first-time runner, this game can be quite easy to get into, especially if you just want to learn all the stages and things like that. But I'd highly recommend that in terms of learning a game like this, learning the stages is definitely a priority. Like learning how to handle the car, how to throw it into corners, what gears to use and things like that. Now, most beginners would go for automatic gears, which is fair enough. I did the same when I first started playing this game, back around 2000, 2001 when it first released. But obviously, the faster times will come when you use manual gears, which is what I'm currently using. Now, 2 things I'd like to just quickly mention. That stage actually has a fun trick up its sleeve. Now, the fun trick, you might be asking, what is it? So there's several out of bounds in some of these stages. Not every single stage has one, just a few at the moment. We are still on the lookout for finding new ones that we can use in runs, but for now there's only a few that we found and can actually be used. However, I've always considered some of these out of bounds to be very risky, especially for a marathon run. So for marathon's sake, I won't be showing some of them off. However, I will explain them to you. So, in that first stage in Greece, right at the start line, there's a little hill bank. Now, providing you can get your car on the hill, you can actually drive up on the left-hand side, right near the start. You have to turn around and drive up the hill. Once you do that, there's a barrier which you can actually drive through. You do that, you're on the hillside, and also part of the stage that's not loaded. If you touch this part of the stage that's not loaded, it means that, well, you'll be respawned back on the track. However, with some pretty good timing, you can actually drive around the outside of the stage and across a hill. A bit like how I'm driving just willy-nilly across the stage at the moment. And once you've done that, what you then want to do is you drive down a hill and through a set of woods. Now, there is a bit of stage where it's not loaded. However, if you can jump the trigger point and drive up the hill opposite. Now, the problem is this is very unforgiving. Some angles don't work, others do. I haven't found a consistent way of doing it. And by pure luck, I managed to get on my PB run to kind of prove my point a little bit. But yeah, you basically drive across the gap, drive up the hill, and then drive alongside the stage. Be careful that you don't, being careful that you don't tip your car over, because if you do, then obviously you'll get respawned back on the stage, and you don't want that. Now, providing you do that, all you've then got to do is drive around the stage, and eventually you'll get to a point. You most likely get to a point in the stage where something will happen, which is you'll go through some wooded section, and what will then happen is you'll have a few other bits and pieces to, well, Yeah, you'll just respawn basically at the end of the stage, which is pretty funny. And you may notice between every 2 stages there's a service area, and you'll notice as well that I'm not doing anything between these service areas. This is because it's actually quicker than repairing your car. Now, the more time you take to repair your car, the slower your run's going to be. Now, it's one of them games where it's all about risk and reward. Now, rallying, for those that don't know, is a very tough sport. It's a very tough kind of motorsport because it's 3 days of somebody driving with their co-driver in the passenger seat. And the co-driver reads pace notes for the stages that they've got to do. And they sometimes do 8 stages a day, 10 stages. It really depends, but between, I'd say, 8 to 15 stages a day. And it goes on for, I think it's around 3 to 4 days, something like that altogether. And they drive several hundred miles, 100 kilometers, should I say, throughout the entire event. And obviously the person who has the fastest rally time at the end of the rally wins. That's how rallying works, and the champion is usually that person who's been most consistent with scoring points. Sometimes it's not all about the wins, but winning, obviously, like in most cases, winning helps, as you might imagine. But yeah, in rallying normally, there's actually a toolkit and a few spares in the back of the car that they carry with them to repair, like punches, to repair broken car parts and things like that. For example, I don't know if they still do it now, but what they used to do is if they had like they hit a rock and they had a suspension shaft damaged, they take the suspension shaft off the car and bend it back into shape using rocks and stones and stuff like that. Because if a hammer doesn't do it, then usually some big rock that weighs like a ton will. There's been various cases of drivers doing it over the years, and it's all desperation. It shows you like how much time and effort there is in just getting to the finish line and winning a rally. It's absolutely crazy, but it's amazing to watch at times. But yeah, it's quite a fast and frantic, very fast and frantic sport, and definitely one that's worth watching if you're interested. As far as the games go, so this series, the Colin McRae Rally series, like I said, this is the second game in the series that I'm showing off today. And there is another series of games, which is actually this series carrying on today. So from 1998 up until 2004, this was known as the Colin McRae Rally franchise. Then in 2006 or 2007, I think it was 2007, this series was formerly known as Dirt. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with the Dirt series these days. It's one of the biggest rallying games out there at the moment. But that's basically this series, which still lives on today. There's still games being created for it. I believe the latest one was Dirt 5. Why the change to the Dirt series happened in the first place, I have no idea, but I think after 2005, as in the 2005 game, they're naming, I think it was a case of, well, we've given it 2005, why don't we create another Colin McRae game, but we'll create it from scratch. And they even got Colin McRae himself to input his, give his feedback, so to speak, and make the game his own properly. Because up until that point, he'd given his feedback for these games, but he wanted to create like a bit more of a realistic racing experience, especially with the release of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. So Colin McRae Dirt was born. Unfortunately, this also timed with Mr. McRae's untimely death in a helicopter crash in 2007. So the original Colin McRae Dirt released in, I think it was early August 2007, and then in late August, Colin McRae sadly died in a helicopter crash. And yeah, the series was formerly known as Dirt rather than Colin McRae Dirt. Also, you may be wondering, what the heck am I doing? Well, you remember these the super special stages I was telling you guys about, well, that's what I mean. So you may be wondering, what the heck just happened? Well, so you remember how I said we did a lot of corner cutting and there's going to be a lot of corner cutting? Well, that's the reason why we do it. So, about a year and a half ago now, I think it was, Zorfkov, one of the guys in the Colin McRae rally community, found out that you could disqualify yourself in the super special stages by simply contacting the other car. So whatever the other car was, you just turn around, drive in reverse, and head towards the other car. Now, what this does is this basically saves, in the long run, there's actually 4 super special stages. Now, this actually saves, believe it or not, this saves around 5 minutes. Now, you're probably wondering, how the hell does that save 5 minutes? Well, put it this way. If you do the super special stages normally, the Greece one takes about 1:20. The Sweden one takes about 1:40. Kenya takes 1:40. And Britain takes about 1.5 minutes. Now, you add them times up, you've got around 5 and a bit minutes. Now, minus around 20 seconds off that for each stage. And that's how much time save was found for the entire run. So it's about, I'd say more like 4.5 minutes rather than 5, but you get the idea. It was a lot of time save. Now, before this was found, the time was stuck at around 1:24:57 or 53 or something. I can't remember who. I think it was Lucky that had the record at the time. And at that point, it was like, oh, well, the time could probably come down to like a 1:23 if there was some really good driving and we got really good weather. Which is something I'll get onto in a second as well, the weather system. Anyway, we all thought that the time couldn't go any lower. Then 4.5 minutes of time save was found, and immediately, oh my god, sub 1:20 was possible. We were shocked in more ways than one. So then it was a case of getting the time down, who could get under 1:20 the fastest. Well, it took a while, but I managed to do it myself. I think it was about a year of it ago now. And it was absolutely crazy when it happened. So, yeah, that was pretty unbelievable. But then more skips were found and things like that. And then before we knew it, now we're looking at a possible 1:17 or even a 1:16 with various new skips that are found. Now, speaking of skips, there is one that's on this stage. Now, in a second, there's going to be a bunch of hillside, and I'll explain it in a minute. I'll point it out to you now. Right, so this hillside that's on the left right now, there's actually a gap there where them trees were. You might have just briefly seen that. Now, providing you can get your car lined up sideways, you can actually push your way through outside of the stage. You do have to drive very near inbounds again, like where the barrier is to push you back into the stage. If you drive around the outside of the grass coast and drive over the hill, this actually saves around a minute or so for this stage. Now, it's pretty difficult to pull off. It's only briefly... You're only briefly able to pull it off, as in, there's a very slim chance of pulling it off unless you know what exact angle you can get the car to be pushed through at. But if you can get it, it's about a minute and a bit save. Now, I've not managed to get it on a run at all, and I haven't even tried it. Simply because of the fact that I think personally, it's too risky, so I've not really gone for that. But there's been a lot of strats found in the last couple of months as well that have saved a minute or two of time, which is ridiculous. But again, this is how the times are able to come down, and currently my summer best is around the mid 1:17 for this game. The record, for those that don't know, for this category, for the standard cars, is a 1:18.22, which is currently set by me. And as it stands right now, that can go into the 1:17s if these new time saves were used and things like that. But apart from that, it's a pretty difficult run to do as a whole, but still pretty cool, so that's good. Now, you may remember that I mentioned the weather system. I said there's a weather system, and I'll get onto it in a second. Well, allow me to explain. So, before dynamic weather was a thing in the Colin McRae Rally series, sorry, in the Dirt series, should I say, this game actually did dynamic weather. Now, I'm pretty sure people know what dynamic weather is, but for those that don't know, dynamic weather is when the weather will change over the course of the stage or over the course of several stages. Basically, you know, the weather's going to go from being sunny to raining. Now, the easiest notable notable instance of this is in Italy and the UK, which are two of the last rallies in this run, in any of the championship runs, should I say. So here's kind of how it works. When you start a rally, the weather is usually factored into that. Now, in most rallies such as Greece, France, Australia and Kenya, the weather usually stays the same for the Novice Championship. I'll explain why I've only said the Novice in a minute. But basically, in the Novice Championship, you only get 4 stages, like I said, 5 if it's got a super special stage. And depending on the rally, some of these rallies actually have changeable weather. So, Finland, the first rally in the game, has, I think it's about a 30% or 20% chance of rain that you can get during that run, during any run, when you start the championship for the first time. Now, it should be noted that it's not only championship mode that this has an effect on. If you do a single rally and you just want to do Finland and nothing else, then the dynamic weather still plays a part in this. And it actually plays a part in every rally, believe it or not. But yeah, Finland can be a bit of a run killer straight away if you get rain. Now, like I said, it has about a 30% chance of rain. My advice really is just to kind of keep resetting until you get a dry Finland. I wouldn't really risk it, because there's a reason why I'm saying this, is because in the wet, you lose on average about half a minute in stage time. Now in Finland, it's about 20 seconds, if that. 15, 20 seconds is the equivalent. If your driving's roughly around the same as it is in the dry. In Italy and the UK, this can go up by another 20 seconds on top of that. So it's about half a minute, 40 seconds each for those rallies, which is nuts, but it is what it is. Now, in a championship run, ideally what you want is dry weather the whole run. That's what you want. And if you can get it, it's a miracle. And it's also a case of don't mess it up. So in Italy, you suffer quite a lot because Italy is wet at times and it's dry for the other half of it. Sometimes you can have a completely dry Italy, other times you can have a completely wet Italy. It really just depends on what the weather wants to throw at you. Speaking of Italy, so Italy and France are both the only tarmac rallies in the game. France, to me, is seen as tarmac heaven. Like, I can throw a lot of the corners in this are very fast flowing. Some are very sharp, but honestly, I quite enjoy the French rally. Italy, on the other hand, is what I call tarmac hell, and the rally of 1,000 corners. Simply because of the fact that, as you'll see when we get to Italy, that it is completely full of very sharp 90-degree turns. You're very close to the wall. You can easily destroy your car because you can go too fast around corners. Half the corners are blind, so you need to know what you're stepping into. And brakes are very much needed. Although I've seen people do stages on France and Italy without using the brakes at all, which, I'll be honest, I could never do. Believe me, I've tried in the past and it never worked. Also, you may notice that we're actually speeding through these rallies pretty fast now, so we're already finishing France. This is the last stage in France. And then the next one is Sweden. Now, Sweden has a couple of tactics up its sleeve, and I'm actually going to be showing one of the new ones off. And there's one that's been around for quite a while, which is called the ice skip, and I'll explain that when we get a bit closer to it. But upon practicing one in the fourth stage of the rally, I'll be able to show that off, which is good. So even in France, we still managed to cut the corners. Now, as some of the latter stages get on, we won't be really cutting as many corners as we did originally. So in Sweden, we cut a couple of corners. Australia, we barely cut any. Kenya is more like a speed test. And then I think Italy's just very short. And then UK again is just kind of weather. Hopefully is on our side. The weather's on our side for Sweden, apparently, which is very fascinating. Which is actually really good. I'm quite surprised that the weather's quite nice today for Sweden. I didn't think it would be, but thank you, Gabe. So, Sweden's the only rally in the game where you encounter snow. Now, snow, for those that aren't aware, it can slow you down dramatically. It's a pain in the winter, and yeah, cars can get stuck. It's not exactly the greatest rally experience, but we're rally drivers, so obviously we can go pretty fast in the snow. The snowbanks are actually kind of your friend. You can use them to slow your car down, and some excessive snow on the sides of the track. So there's always that. Now there is going to be a few corner cuts in this stage, but not too many. If it snows in Sweden, by the way, if you do happen to get snow on a run, it's not the end of the world, because I don't think that if it snows in Sweden, it's not exactly a bad thing. Now, like I was saying before, if it rains in Finland or Italy or the UK, you lose a lot of time. In Sweden, that doesn't seem to work to the same effect. It seems to maybe slow you down by 5 seconds or so. I don't really see a difference in my stage times normally, whether it's completely dry like it is now, or we have a snow blizzard or snowstorm. Because believe it or not, yes, you can get snowstorms and blizzards in this game. They are a thing. But yeah, we've got altogether, I think it's, I'm trying to think how many stages we've got. I think it's 40 stages for the entirety of Novice. In Intermediate, there's 8 stages per rally, with it being 9 if it has a super special stage as well. And Expert is 10 stages per rally, with 11 if it's got a super special stage, of course. And the differences between the categories, the Novice is under an hour and a half. For a casual player, I'd say it's about an hour and 40. Intermediate is more like about 3 and a bit hours. And Expert is around the 4-hour mark for a casual playthrough, I'd say. Now, there is actually a 100% category for this game, which involves you doing the 3 championships, Novice, Intermediate, and Expert, as well as 2 other game modes. So there's various other game modes for this. There is arcade mode, which is circuit racing. So if you like circuit racing, that's it for you guys. And if you are into doing the head-to-heads properly, there is something called challenge mode, which is basically like a knockout tournament of 8 drivers all fighting for the crown. With it being, you can set the amount of rounds yourself, but the challenge percent category is 4 rounds on 5 sets of stages. Greece, Sweden, Kenya, and the UK, with the only time you actually go to Japan in this game in the challenge mode. Now, to kind of bring us back to where we are now. So, coming up right now is something called the ice skip. Now, I hope I get it, but basically, this was found by Zorkov as well about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, I think now. So basically, when you go on the ice over here, there's a snowbank, which you can hit here. But if you hit this with enough speed, and it flips the car over like this, you've actually respawned the car further on the stage. Now, if I go over here, if I literally drive off-road here, all the way to this railing over here, we're going to flip the car right near the railing. What this is going to do is this is actually going to get me to respawn, hopefully, if I can get it. The car's not going to be a pain. Hopefully it will work. 1 second. Let me see if I can get it. Come on, car. Don't do this to me now. Right, there we go. Flips over. It'll respawn you. There we go. It respawns you further on the stage. Right near the end of the ice section. So, I didn't get the perfect flipping there for the car, so I did lose a bit of time there, but it's still alright. Well, I'm sure we'll be alright. Don't worry, we'll still be on the rest of it, so it's fine in the long run. But yeah, if you do like a perfect run of this stage and you get the car to flip over first try without even really having to mess about and trying to get it to flip over 2 or 3 times afterwards, you can easily beat this stage in under 2.5 minutes. Like, no questions asked. It's just that easy to do. Now, there is a less tricky option. You can do the ice skip an easier way, but this takes longer time. So the easier way of doing it is before you get onto the ice, there's actually a hill on your left-hand side. If you thread the car through the trees, you can actually drive alongside the entire left snowbank, all the way to near the end if you want. Or the alternative is you can always drive on the right side snowbank and drive all the way to the end. However, flipping the car over and basically, if you drive across it normally, it's a lot quicker. But if you want to be safe, you can always do that way. And it's actually quite easy to do. You just need to make sure, though, that you do not fall off the sides of the snowbank, otherwise you'll respawn on the stage and obviously have to beat the stage normally. Stage 3 for Sweden, thankfully, is quite a simple stage. There's nothing really to it. It's about 1 minute and 20-ish, something like that. Now, the service areas, I'll come back to them because they're quite important. So the service areas, as I mentioned, I don't really repair the car, simply because of the fact that I don't really need to. I'm alright with a damaged car, it doesn't really bother me, and it's faster to not repair your car. If your car's wrecked, if you're doing this run for the first time, your car's smashed up, don't feel bad if you have to repair your car. After all, the more repair your car is, the less damage you take, and the more repaired your car is, the faster it will go. It'll keep its speed. So, like I said, for a first-time run, don't worry about it. So, this grey screen, this is a bug, but it's a bug in a good way. So, the bug that you've just seen on the PC version, what that actually tells you is that you're going to get a variable weather effect on this stage. It might apply to 2 stages, or it might apply to 1. So basically, this stage seems completely normal. Aside from the flickering, of course, that's just a graphical bug. But the stage starts off dry, and you'll notice in a minute it's going to start snowing. Here comes the snow. So that is what we call a variable weather effect. Now, believe it or not, in Colin McRae Rally 2, this variable weather thing that I keep mentioning is actually only limited to this game, because in Colin McRae Rally 3, 04 and 2005 they had weather effects. However, no stage had variable weather where it would start dry and it'd end wet, and vice versa. Usually you get the variable weather effect where it starts dry and ends wet. Also, coming up is one of the first new skips, so I'm going to just be careful here and do this. So I need to drive forward a bit. So if you go right near this barrier down here and get the car stuck, you can actually warp your car through this barrier here, like that. And all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drive across here. Now, there is an out of bounds. There's a wall to stop you from getting stuck. I luckily managed to get out of bounds last time I did this. Hopefully it'll let me out. Please let me out. If I can get it. I did manage to get this to work last time, so I'll try and see if it'll work backwards. Might work backwards. Possibly. Or not. No. No, okay. I'll have to work forwards. Might have to somehow get the car to respawn. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Car's got stuck. Come on. Respawn me, please. Oh, come on. So it worked before. Just have to make sure I can somehow get this out. That's not a good thing, because it's stuck. Oh, come on. There we go. No, we're out. We're out. That's good. Phew. Okay, so that backfired in one of the worst ways possible, so I'll know not to go for that again. I got it before, but that was pretty risky. So what's supposed to happen there is your car is supposed to slip out at the end of the... it's supposed to slip out at the end of the... end of the barrier, but that didn't, unfortunately. I'm actually going to have to do the super special stage normally now, because I've actually lost that much time to the AI, so this is going to be a big time loss. This run might end up going over estimate, possibly now, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to see how the rest of this run goes. I think that was pretty risky. So that has to probably be one of the worst stages I've ever done. So because I don't have enough time in hand to do the rest of to do the DNF skip on this, I'm gonna actually have to do a stage normally. So normally I would do the super special stage skip, but like I said, because we just lost that huge amount of time to the AI, it means that I just have to do a stage normally, which is a shame, but unfortunately, that was me trying to get that. That was the game not working out, so just got to hope that things work out in my favour from now on. Why it took so long for me to get the car through that gap, I do not know. Because normally it just, you ram it straight through and it goes straight through. But me having to keep wiggle it didn't help. So you actually get to see one of the super special stages for the first time. This is the only time you'll probably see it. The other stages will be fine. I'll be fine with the Kenya and the UK stages. Yeah, we should be all good. So yeah, normally, like I said, for the super special stages, what you've got to do is you've got to hit the oncoming car, whatever that might be. This also feels weird doing this for a run, but yeah, there we go. So what we're going to be doing for this rally, for Australia, is I've adjusted my gear ratio to be longer. Now, there's a reason for that. Again, I mentioned service areas and stuff before, but for each rally, we're going to be changing some of the gear ratios. Some of them, anyway, not all. So on Finland, you just have the car stock. You don't have to change any settings. You can change the suspension to a softer suspension if you want to, and that will obviously make things a lot easier. If you want to do that, you can do that, of course. That's optional. So there's that. In Greece, I would probably recommend switching the gearbox down a notch so it's a bit shorter, because there's a lot of corners in Greece. There's not too many straights where you can use all of your speed. In France, I would do the same again. Do not pick the shortest gearbox for France. Only reason being is because the car maxes out at 100 miles an hour rather than about 110. So you do want some sort of speed for the straights when you get a few anyway. If you have it too short, then it'll be a complete problem and you'll constantly have to change gears. Ideally, the less time you spend gear changing, the better. Obviously, it's all about speed. It's not about how many gear changes you go through. You'll lose speed in the long run, basically, if you change the gearbox to too short. For Sweden, I just leave the gearbox. I leave everything alone on the car. For Australia, you may have noticed, like I said, I've just changed the gearbox up one. That's simply because of the fact that you can actually get a lot of speed out of the car, especially on stage 2. Now, there is a few minor cuts that we're going to be doing here and there for Australia. That's simply because of the fact that in Australia, there's not really many cuts to do, so the rally is fairly straightforward. There's not a lot to it. It's just kind of point A to point B on all 4 stages. There are a few little cuts, like I said, that we're using, but apart from that, there's nothing to cry home about. And weather's another thing on this. There's no problem with the weather in Australia or indeed in Kenya. And the only reason for that is because in the Novice, you only have 4 stages, and weather doesn't really play a factor too much in half of the rallies. It does play a factor in Italy and the UK. And believe it or not, that's where runs are usually made or broke. Pretty much. It's like make or break time, that sort of thing. Now, it looks like we've got some grey sky in Australia, but it shouldn't rain. I've never had it rain in Australia before. If it does, that will be a first, as in a first time ever. I've heard of people getting rain in Australia and Kenya on novice runs, but I've never seen it myself. So if it does happen, then that will be, wow, that's a first sort of thing for me. But yeah, like I said, you guys voted for the Mitsubishi Lancer. Like I said, it's not the fastest car out of the lot. But there is actually a few things I should note about this game as well. So even though it came out in 2000, it's still a pretty good looking rally game in my opinion. For a 2000 title anyway. Now, compared to later releases, as in the releases that came after this still looks quite good against those. Now, it doesn't look as realistic as the next few games did. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people here may be familiar with somebody called Silent. He's done patches for various games and things like that. Well, he did a Silent patch for this game. So this game doesn't run too well on modern hardware. However, if you apply the Silent patch, it kind of differs from person to person, but basically what the Silent patch allows you to do, primarily anyway, as its main use, is to allow this game to be played on modern machinery, so Windows 7, 8, 8.1 and Windows 10. And it also allows it to be played in up to 1080p. Yeah, 1920 by 1080, which is what we're playing it at right now. So if you're wondering, damn, I don't remember the PC port looking this good, well, that's because Silent Patch is making it look this good. All the, I believe all of the graphics are upscaled slightly. There's only so much you can actually do to an old game like this, but yeah, definitely credit to Silent for creating a Silent patch and making this game look a lot better than it used to back in 2000. For me, it's been one of the more enjoyable Colin McRae rallies to play, which has always been nice. So we've not had any rain yet, which is a good sign. That's always a good sign. But yeah, like I said, it's the game runs at 60 FPS on PC compared to PlayStation 1 that runs at 25 on PAL and 30 on NTSC if you're playing it on that. One thing should be noted about the PS1 version. So, well, kind of goes for both versions. So when this game released in 2000, there was two versions. There was a version 1.0 and a 1.1. Now, the copy of Colin McRae Rally 2 that most people seem to have a copy of is version 1.1. However, I know there are a few runners that have a copy of 1.0, the original copy. There's actually a slight difference. Now, most of the game, as far as I know, pretty much I'd say about 99% of the game is the same, so it wouldn't matter which version you played. However, there's one notable visual difference for both version 1.0 and 1.1. And that is one of the cars. Now, the car in question is the Subaru Impreza. And in the version 1.0, it was decorated in a typical Subaru Colin McRae. I can't remember if it was actually Colin McRae's official livery, but it was decked out in a blue and yellow 555 style livery. If you play the version 1.1, if you play the 1.1 version, should I say, then the Subaru is still the Subaru, except it looks a lot different. So basically, the model of the car has changed slightly. So it represents a slightly different looking Impreza. And not only that, the paint job that's on it is it's still blue, except it is a Japanese driver. His car, I forget who it was, I think it's something Arai or something. I cannot remember the driver's name per se, but he was a Japanese rally driver that drove for Subaru in, I think it was 1998 or 99. And basically on version 1.1, they put his livery into the game for the 1.1 version. Why they did this, we don't know. We have absolutely no idea why they did this. But it's an interesting change nonetheless. So if you want to play the version 1.1, it's pretty hard to find. Especially the PS1 version, it's very difficult to find an original copy of the game for that one. But for the PC version, obviously, there's such a thing as modding. So you can actually get the Subaru from version 1.0, mod it into your 1.1 game, and it'll overwrite the existing thing. Now, as far as we know, there's no differences in speed or the car sound or anything like that. The car looks exactly the same, it sounds exactly the same. The only difference being, obviously, the model of the car and the paint job that's on it. Apart from that, everything else is the same. It still comes up as Subaru Impreza, the AI still drives them, etc. There is actually mods for this game as well. So, alongside the original game, there's been modified packs made, such as a WRC mod, which changes most of the game and turns it into the 2016 WRC season. The stages pretty much look the same, except with a few WRC tweaks. The most notable of which, there's a big difference in one of the rallies though, which is that Italy has been turned into Monte Carlo now, and basically all the stages have like snow and ice on the sides of them. I don't know if it means they're any more slippy or what, but yeah, basically all the cars have changed, the hoods have changed, the pace notes at the top change, the audio changes, everything about the game basically changes. But the stages that you play are the same with some modifications. Obviously, the cars are different. Things like that. There's also a Dirt 2005 to 2007 mod, so you can play with some classic WRC cars with different engine noises. And there's even a WRC 2002 mod, which is quite remarkable. And that basically allows you to play with cars from the 2002 season. There's 2 different sets of vehicles, but the mod itself is a quite a nice addition to the game. And finally, there's a few other little extras that you can add in. So there's a website, I think it's called Rally Gamer, and the guy's got, I think it's something like 60 or 70, it might be a bit less than that though, around that many, car skins for the cars, so you can modify the paint jobs, the car models to look like some of the classic ones. So, for example, you can get one of the, I think it's the Ford Escort Mark 1 or something. You can get that to look like the Opel Manta 400 from the Group B era, that sort of era of rallying, or the 1970s. You can also turn the Toyota Corolla into the Toyota Celica GT4 from the 1990s, which is pretty cool. You can modify the Subaru so it'll look like something out of 2006 instead of 1998 or 1997. You can turn a lot of the cars into different ones. Obviously, in the game they don't change, so they still show up as Toyota Corolla, Ford Escort Mark 1, but when you select them and you go in game, the car changes. It's a shame because the car audios don't change and it's all visual effects, but yeah, if you want to like race with some of the old cars with the old liveries and things like that, you can download these liveries and modify them into the game. Unfortunately, any speedruns that are done with modifications will not be allowed or anything like that. The only exception of modification that we currently allow for Colin McRae Rally 2 right now is the Subaru Impreza from the 1.0, 1.1 patch. That's it. Just because of the fact that there's no difference in speed as far as we're aware, and we can't see any difference in speed. I've got both versions together at one point and couldn't tell any speed difference. They both managed to do very similar lap times. I don't mean like one was quicker than the other. I mean they were maybe within like 1,000th of a second. There was literally nothing in it around the same track. So yeah, it's a case of no major differences there, but any other modifications to cars usually aren't allowed. Now, there is actually variables of some cars. So you may remember I mentioned bonus cars earlier. And the bonus cars, obviously, like I said, there's various cars that you can unlock and so on. Now, there's 2 notable mentions about these bonus cars. The first of which is that the Mitsubishi Lancer, the Ford Focus, and well, the bonus cars itself have alternate liveries that you can unlock. So, for example, there's the Mitsubishi Lancer, the standard car that you have at the start. But as you go through certain rallies and game modes, you can unlock the Mitsubishi Lancer Alternate 1, the Alternate 2 livery, and you can also unlock the Mitsubishi Lancer Road Car, which is a plain white Mitsubishi Lancer with no racing livery or anything like that. It's just a plain white Mitsubishi Lancer, which I think is quite cool. There's the... what's the other one? The Ford Focus also has 2 alternate liveries. There is another one for the Ford Focus, but we'll come back to that. And one of the bonus cars that you can unlock, like I mentioned before, is the Lancia Delta Integrale. Well, the Lancia Delta Integrale itself is a bonus car, and that also has 2 alternate liveries as well, which is quite cool. Now, the reason why I mentioned the Ford Focus. The Ford Focus has a bonus car, which is the 1999 Ford Focus. Again, I mentioned this before. However, to unlock the car, you actually need to unlock all the cars using a cheat. Now, you can do this straight from the get-go. There's nothing against doing this to unlock all the cars from the get-go. That's completely fine. However, one thing that is worth noting, as I completely balls that up, good grief. Come on, Evo, get up. There we go. Is that the Ford Focus doesn't actually appear no matter how many, doesn't matter what challenges that you beat, what rallies you beat, even if you get gold on absolutely everything in the game, you still cannot get the Ford Focus from 1999. It can only be unlocked via cheats. Now, why this is beyond me, but it's the only, like I said, it's the only car in the entire game that you can unlock via a cheat code, nothing else. There was a similar thing in Colin McRae Rally 1, where there was 2 cars only in the PC version, which was some like Millennium, I think it was called like a Millennium 4 something or other, I forget what it actually was called, but some like weird car, like concept car, that you could unlock via cheat code, and also the Toyota Celica GT4 from the mid to late 1990s. Again, those were 2 cars that you could only unlock via cheat code, so it's not the first time cars can be unlocked via cheat codes. Now, whilst I've been talking and been racing through Kenya, it's probably worth noting this particular stage I'm racing on right now. So stage 3 in Kenya is actually quite an iconic one for this game, because if you leave this game on idle, it goes into demo mode, and chances are this is the track that you'll see with Colin McRae's Ford Focus. I believe this was also shown off in various magazines and also trailers for the game as well. So, quite a well-known stage, that Kenya Stage 3. But yeah, there's not really too much else to know about this game other than, like I said, it came out in 2000, and for a game that turns 21 this year, it still looks pretty damn good, in my opinion. Especially for a racing game. Like I said, there's always worth the try of trying out the other Colin McRae Rally games. So each of the Colin McRae Rally games does have a speedrun category, speedrun page of its own. And if you're feeling really brave, there's something which was recently started about a year and a bit ago, which was called the McRae Pentology. And the McRae Pentology is basically you've got to beat Colin McRae Rally 1 to 2005. It's basically like a relay race game. It doesn't take as long as you think, though. So in that, you have to beat the Novice Championship for Colin McRae Rally 1 and 2, the first season of Colin McRae Rally 3, the two-wheel drive Novice Championship in Colin McRae Rally 04, and the Championship mode in Colin McRae Rally 2005. I think the current record is around 6 hours 11 or something like that. Maybe a bit more, I'm not sure. And that's currently set by myself. And whilst we're on the subject of relay racing and things like that, is I feel like this would be a good time to just mention, is that the Colin McRae Rally series as a whole started something up a few years ago, and the McRae Pentology was kind of a spin-off from that. So about 3 years ago, somebody came to me and said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could do, like, if you did, like, a relay of Colin McRae Rally 1 to 2005? And I said, yeah, that sounds good. So something was born called McRaeathon. Now, McRaeathon was that's what it was originally known as. The McRae Pentology was originally called McRaeathon. However, McRaeathon ended up becoming a marathon run by myself and another person called Joseph, or Joseph744, as he's known. And the event, the marathon itself, has been run about, I think, 3 times now. The first one was the relay race, so I wouldn't really call it a marathon per se. But the second and third events, although they were more like the first 2, McRaeathon 2 and 3, were run as a marathon. And we're very successful. There we go. Got the Kenya one. Great stuff. And recently, we opened up, I say recently, about a month ago, we opened up submissions for McRaeathon 2021. And basically, for those that are a bit unaware or are unaware of McRaeathon or what it is, it's basically a car racing game marathon, which works alongside BSG, so Benelux Speedrunners Gathering, and they work with us. And we put on a great show of various forms of racing game speedruns. And our next event is on the 17th and 18th of April. I believe it is that weekend. Submissions are currently open until next Sunday, the 28th of March. We've also got staff applications open as well. So if anyone wants to help out as host or tech or anything like that, those application forms are open as well. Again, until next Sunday. So if you know anyone that might have a racing game that they want to show off, car racing is preferably desired here, then feel free to head on over to our Oengus page and yeah, sure to submit. We've had quite a few good submissions already, but again, there's still another week to go. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there, considering originally where it started from, and this was partially the reason why it started. The whole Colin McRae rally franchise and one guy's idea started. Now, I should just quickly mention something here, is that the guy that originally came up with this idea was a guy called Deathmaster D. I don't know what his name is now. I don't know if he's changed it or not. But basically, it was his idea to start with. He came to me and said, well, "Why don't you run like a marathon possibly one day?" And obviously, the McRae Pentology ideas kind of all stemmed from that. So without him suggesting that in the first place, we wouldn't have been putting on an event like that. Whilst I'm speaking about Colin McRae and all the rest of it, should be worth noting, I've just seen we've got a dry Italy. Now, this is really good news. Having a dry Italy in any run is a really good thing. Mainly because of the fact that, well, if it's wet, your car slides and struggles like there's no tomorrow. And as you may already notice, we're getting around these corners pretty fast right now. So it's something to note for the foreseeable future. If you want a good time, definitely Italy is your main one. The UK is also one that likes to trick you. Now, like I mentioned before with the service areas and stuff like that, is that you want to have a short gearbox for Italy due to the amount of corners, which I think is kind of already explaining itself as we're going. Stage 3, I believe, is even worse for corners. So, again, you'll see that a lot more. And the other thing is, as well, is that whilst we're on Stage 2 of Italy, Stage 2 actually has an out-of-bounds thing that you can do. So right near the start, there's a hill. Now, you have to drive up at a certain angle to force your car up the hill. You want to lean against the trees and try and get your car behind the crowd that's at the start. If you don't trigger the respawn thing at the start, that is. So again, this game is very unforgiving at times where it's respawn pointers. Half of the time, it's fine. The game doesn't even care, as you'll see shortly. But for the most part, the game's like, yeah, okay, you can drive out of bounds, and if you can fit out of bounds, it's fine, you know. We're not going to stop you, just don't drive into some places where the level hasn't loaded, otherwise we're going to respawn you. That's kind of what it felt like, anyway. To me, at least. Actually, I can explain, because there's a bit coming up in about 2 seconds. So these two chicanes here. So you do this first chicane here, like so. Second chicane, nah, we just cut that. Do that. You just beeline it. Piece of cake. That actually saves about 3 or 4 seconds in total, I'd say. So these last few corners are a bit of a pain. I have to make sure I'm careful. Oh dear. Say, shattered the window, but that's fine. Okay, so we're still dry, stage 3, and it looks like we're going to be dry for stage 4 as well, so that's good. So luckily, losing time in Italy, like I said, you lose about half a minute, but this is going to be half a minute that we're not going to lose, thankfully, which is nice. And that means that I can kind of relaxed when it comes to the UK, as if it gives me a hard time, then it'll be fine. We should actually now still be underestimate again. I was a bit worried before about the whole Sweden thing, which is a shame that I couldn't show that off properly, but again, sometimes maybe it would have been best if I just left that one. Well, I know for next time, it's fine.
Do we have time for a donation?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, we have $55 from Roy C. saying, great commentary, very informative, BPG. Thank you for this awesome donation that went to the bonus Barbie Fashion Pack games. So we're now $62 out of 100 to get this bonus game in the marathon. So, you know, keep donating. Thanks a lot. And we are like $20 away, well, $21 away from beating our record from last year. So that'd be awesome if we could get it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the the comment about my commentary. You're too kind. So, as I was saying before with Italy, it's full of many corners. It's a very tricky rally. I make it look easy, and I do apologise if I do. But then again, that's probably what 20 years worth of playing this game does to you over the time. I haven't played this game for 20 years straight. I just need to clarify this. So, I may have been playing this game since, 2000, 2001. But that doesn't mean I've been playing it consecutively for 20 years. I have been playing it on and off. It was a game I very much enjoyed as a kid, and it's a game that I very much enjoyed even growing into my teens and growing into a young adult. So it's definitely something that I keep coming back to. And the one thing to note about this as well is at one point, I think it was... What year was it now? I think it might have been 2014, 15, oh, when was it? 2016, this was it. So in 2016, I actually took, 2014, I originally started speedrunning, and I took, I did a game or two for about 2 or 3 months, and then just stopped for like a year and a half. And then when I was in college in 2016, decided to give speedrun a try again. And this was actually the game that got me back into speedrun. I think it was either this one or the original Colin McRae rally. Because I'd seen that there was a speedrun leaderboard for it, and I was like, I didn't know there was a speedrun leaderboard for it. And I didn't really bother with the PC version of Colin McRae Rally 2. I didn't know how to capture it or how to do anything with it. I wasn't too big into knowing how to stream or do anything back then. I just knew how to capture I think it was using W split at the time and all that stuff. And so I was capturing the splits in the game and everything. And I was using the PS1 version. I was playing the game on emulator, and I didn't know half of the cuts. So my first run was pretty bad. I think it was like a 140 or something. Bear in mind the PS1 version's slow by about 10 minutes than the PC version, or a little over 10 minutes anyway. So that 140 I did would have been like a 130. Anyway, I improved a bit more on it, and it was a 139. I was like, oh, okay. I was still at the bottom of the leaderboards when I submitted it, and it got verified. Then came my big breakthrough, which was, I think I did a 137 on the PS1. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Then I eventually found out how to get the PC version. Then I did my first PC run. And my first PC run was a 127.46. Although if I retimed it, it probably would be a bit less than that. But yeah, the overall time that I brought down, now it's a 118. In 2 or 3 years, it's come down quite a bit. Like I said, it's all thanks to the community finding the strats that it's found. But it's been absolutely bonkers over the last couple of years. And the main thing is that when I did the 127, so my first PC run, it was a record by about 6 minutes. So when I got to the end of Italy, I was already like quite a bit of time up, and I was like, oh damn, I guess I need to improve on it. So I trying to go for a 127, and that kind of worked, but kind of didn't at the same time. Also, welcome to the UK, where it's rain galore. Now, I should note something here. Two things. The UK has, I think it's an 80% or 90% chance of rain when you do this rally. So if you ever get a dry UK, never let it go to waste, is what I will say. Make sure you never let it go to waste. If it's wet, you got to make the best of a bad situation. So I obviously changed the gearbox to short gearbox. Just simply because of the reason I always change it to a shorter gearbox, because it makes more sense to get the acceleration out of corners, especially in the later stages. I don't think there's any stage that's long enough to have a longer gearbox. Like, there's no reason for it. So there's going to be a couple of cuts and stuff like that. I'm just about to do one in a minute. Hopefully I get it. So we're going to skim through there like that, and we're going to jump over this like so. Like the back of the car. Now you want to try and make sure that your car's not leaping too far into the air for that one, because if it leaps too far into the air, then you're in trouble, unfortunately. Also, it seems like a wet UK is turning into a dry UK, which is good. Seems like the sun's coming out. That's actually quite convenient, although we might get rain later on. So the main thing I should know, I should mention, sorry, is that you can change the tyres for the rallies if you want to. Now for the UK, if you want to play it ultra safe, you can change it to wet tyres and check the weather forecast. But I always play it risky, which is take the dry tyres which are already fitted to the car and always use them. Simply because of the fact that, well, it's quicker in the wet usually. You just got to get used to driving with dry tyres. As you can see, the weather's cleared up, which is quite good. It means we won't lose as much time as I originally thought we would. Although, it won't be this stage which is going to tell the story of how broken the UK is. It's actually going to be stage 4. Now, stage 4 has probably one of the biggest skips in the entire game, in my opinion. And I still consider it to have some huge skips in that stage. Very risky to pull off. Some are very easy, but I'll show you the easy one. I won't be performing one of them because I do find it too difficult to pull off. And I've never had a success rate with it at all. So I'm not going to risk it for the sake of things. But yeah, in stage 4, there's an out of bounds that you can use. The most notable way of doing it, really, or the easiest car to do it in, is with the Mini Cooper, which is a bonus car you unlock. And basically, there's like 2 sets of hay bales and some barrier stuff on the left, I think it is, and there's a gap in between. If you can hit, like with the standard cars, you have to hit it in at such an angle that the cars will fit, but the Mini Cooper can fit because of its small density and collision detection, so the car can usually fit if you hit it on a decent angle. And the angle isn't as tight either with the Mini Cooper, so that's also another good thing. So that is a pretty good second stage. I'm quite happy with that. Now, the question is, what's the weather going to be like stage 3? It's going to be dry again. Yes. Good stuff. So I'll get through stage 3. Actually, whilst I'm on stage 3, I think this is a good time to just mention something. So, in Colin McRae Rally 304 and 2005, which were the 3 games that came after this one, this stage is reused. So I forget what the stage numbers are exactly and which ones they are, but in one stage in particular in Colin McRae Rally 3, one stage in Colin McRae Rally 04, and in one stage in Colin McRae Rally 2005, this exact stage in reverse form is used. So if I was doing this stage in reverse, you'd see exactly... Well, you'd probably see exactly what I mean. I'd have to play the two games side by side, but the stages are practically identical, if not the same, except obviously the stages look different because different platforms and what they were created for were completely different. But yeah, the stage seems quite the same between 3.04 and 2005. It's different in this one because this was the original stage. Some of the stages actually are different, but they have the same name. So one notable Colin McRae Rally famous stage is a stage in Australia called Bluff Knoll. Now, this one in particular has been seen in Colin McRae Rally 2, in Colin McRae Rally 3, 04, 2005, and even Dirt. Now, I don't know if it has been used in any of the other Dirt games besides the first one, but the same stage has been used in all 6 games. I think it might have been even used in Dirt 4. I could be wrong. Or maybe even one of the Dirt Rally games. Again, I could be wrong. Yeah, some of the assets, some of the stages were reused in the original games, and some of the stages that were in some of the originals are in the new ones, except the layouts are slightly different, and obviously half the scenery is not the same, so that's something else to remember. So, with this stage being dry, this is actually a real convenience because that means that when we get into the final bit of the stage, the final bit of the run, which is coming up, it means that we're going to have an easier time and we're going to be saving time here. Or we're not going to be losing any major time, which is a good sign. So, that's stage 3 done. We're on to the second to last stage now. This is UK stage 4. Now, this is one of the most broken in the game. Now, again, I mentioned the out of bounds, but I won't be doing it. However, there is an out of bounds that I can show off. So, this big house on the right-hand side here, our car can actually fit here. Now, if I start driving towards the right-hand side, because the car's so big, it gets pushed out. The collision detection pushes it out of the map. And it allows us to drive outside of the stage. Now, if I drive too far left, what happens is the game's going, hey, you drove off without us. However, what we're going to do is we're going to drive over here, through these trees like this, out of bounds, and it will respawn us on the track. How much time that saves you is around 15 seconds. Now, that might seem a bit daft, but it saves you about 15 seconds. On the AI, it saves nearly 40. But compared to, like, if we did this stage normally, it would take around 2 minutes or so. Something like that. Roughly. But on a dry stage with no wet weather, if it's wet, you should still go for it because it still saves you time. Even in wet weather, which is a real plus. But yeah, like I said, there is a big out of bounds that you can use for this stage, and what it allows you to do is when you get out of bounds, you skip about 70 or 80% of the stages, of the stage length. And when you respawn literally right at the end of the stage. Now, obviously, we're not doing that, because of the fact it's very risky in the standard cars. The Mini Cooper can pull it off normally, but it's very easy to pull off in the standard cars. So we're just going to get to the end here, like that. There we go. And now we're on the super special stage. Now, this is the last stage in the game, and you might have guessed it, yes. We've got to do the disqualification thing. So time is going to be when my car stops, so I'll let you know when time's coming up. But it'll be in around probably about 15 seconds or so. So just be sure you're ready on time. This might not work. I might accidentally go through him, but if that's the case, well, we'll see. Time.
All right, awesome. I have a 1:22:50 on my end.
Yeah, mine was just slightly off. I think one's a 1:22:49:46 I've got, so it's pretty close. About the same.
Yeah, pretty close. All right. Well, that was a very awesome and well commented run. It was really cool. Thank you for
Yeah,
showing
it's
off this game.
yeah. There was a couple of things that kind of went wrong, but apart from that, I think the run went pretty well. There is actually one last thing I just want to quickly mention though, is that
Of
there's an
course.
ending cutscene here. It's only very brief, but basically, there's an ending cutscene when you beat the championship. And what's supposed to happen is on this screen, is a car is supposed to drive across the bottom of the screen. The camera is supposed to follow the car, and the car's supposed to stop in front of a house. Then a load of fireworks go off. However, on the PC version, unfortunately, what happens is that doesn't happen. It
Oh,
breaks the sequence. So what happens is the screen fades, which you briefly saw. It fades, and then the fireworks are shown, and the car's nowhere to be seen. The fireworks you can't actually see. Normally, you should be able to see them. Then the PS1 version, this all works just fine, whichever version it is. On PC, for some weird reason, it's completely broke. Even if you don't have the silent patch, it's still broken with no way of fixing it. We don't know how to fix it, which is unfortunate, but it's a funny end to the run. But yeah,
yeah,
like I said, that's
awesome.
the Novice Championship.
Before you leave, we did have one last donation from Morale, $10, saying big shout out to everyone making Valuethon happen. Great to watch some speedruns while going through the worst lockdown ever in Czech so far. You all are great. Thank you, Morale. And you all are great. That's true.
Yeah, we all put something towards all this lockdown stuff that's happening all over the world, and we can put on a good
Exactly.
show for everybody. But
Indeed.
from my side, I just want to say thanks again to Valuethon for having me. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed it and enjoyed the time. Like I said, feel free to give this game a try. Rough estimate for a first run will probably about an hour and 40, but obviously it can come down with doing skips and things like that. I wouldn't recommend just jumping in trying to do everything I've done today because there is certain things that will require a lot of practice. So just for as a first timer, just to kind of practice the stages, get used to the car's handling and everything like that, and then start to slowly learn cuts and stuff in stages. That's what I'd recommend if you want to learn this game. At the moment, there's a couple of people that run it, and there is, like I said, there's various categories that you can start with. The easiest one and the most popular one of choice, aside from the Novice Championship, is the Novice Arcade Class B. So that's basically 3 races. It's 3 circuit races, one in Italy, one in Sweden, and one in Greece. It's about 8.5 to, well, I'll say 8.5 minutes. Well, the record's around 8.5 minutes, but it's a less than 10-minute run. So if you wanted just a quick category to pick up and play and to learn, yeah, feel free to give that a try. And it's quite an easy category to get into. But yeah, apart from that, thanks again to Valuethon for having me. And yeah, I'll let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back with Evin.